Bernie Sanders has some people in Wall Street nervous after launching his bid to the presidency, as well as a legislative effort to break up the banks. And this was reported in The Hill. Wall Street is worried that Senator Bernie Sanders' vigorous calls for banking industry reform will push Hillary to the left as the two presidential candidates battle for the 2016 Democratic nomination. Well, not only, in my opinion, will it possibly push Hillary to the left, but if Bernie Sanders wins, which is a definite possibility, and I love how The Hill just kind of discounts that whole thing and thinks, well, Bernie's only running to push Hillary to the left. Disagreed. I think he's got a really good chance. Anyway, I think the other thing is that he's kind of whipping out populist support, and that is a good thing. It's basically getting people riled up again against the banks who crashed our economy in 2008. Well, that's the other reason that I think Wall Street's getting a little nervous. Now, Sanders last week, back to The Hill, unveiled new legislation designed to break up the nation's largest banks, declaring that if an institution is too big to fail, it is too big to exist. Now, this bill has no chance, but it really tends to make the bankers a little bit nervous. Now, one banking lobbyist said, the prospects of this becoming law are nil. It's not going to happen. And in fact, he describes this bill as, quote, shrill, bombastic, and misaligned. Look at the condescension from that statement alone. Oh, you're just being so shrill. Oh, calls to break up the banks? Us? How dare you? You are being shrill and bombastic. How dare you even try to break us up before we crash your economy again, which is almost certain to happen if we don't have regulation on us. Remember, they're too big to fail. Too big to fail, too big to jail. Do you think that's really going to stop them from doing the same shit that they did back in 2008 to crash the economy? Giving out shitty loans, subprime mortgages, and betting on bad securities? Do you think that they learned their lesson at all? Do you think you're just going to stand up and be moral people and be like, you know what? We're not going to do that again. Yeah, we messed up the economy. We learned our lesson. No, you made billions of dollars, plus you got bailed out by the taxpayer. And the companies that went down, a lot of the executives got golden parachutes. They didn't learn a damn thing. And they're coming out and saying, how dare you, Bernie Sanders? You're just being so shrill and bombastic as a plan to actually try to save the American economy from us crashing it again. How dare you? Shrill and bombastic. Now, this goes to the dismissal of Bernie Sanders that Lobbyist said, we care about whether this impacts Hillary and whether she'll try to pander to the far left. The far left. I love how making economic sense and actually trying to provide for a free market between banking institutions. Because when you have a very, very large banking establishment that has essentially all the power and the money, you're not going to have a whole lot of options on who you bank with. You're not going to have a free market. And so, I love the idea that actually creating a more competitive playing field is somehow a far leftist idea. It's amazing. These people. But here's the other thing, right? I thought we already had a understanding with Hillary Clinton. I mean, she would go and get paid by us at Goldman Sachs to go and talk about how the banks are being mistreated and how people just don't understand the banking institutions, about the banking industry. And now they're afraid of, Bernie's just I thought we had an understanding with Clinton. Now Bernie's going to try to make her pander to the far left. Look, I got news for you. Bernie ain't pandering. If anything, Bernie Sanders has been very, very consistent on a lot of the issues, especially when it comes to Wall Street regulatory reform and rules. Now, business and banking groups and their lobbying forces on K Street are quickly lining up against the legislation, According to Tom Quaidman, Vice President of the U.S. Chamber Center for Capital Market Competitiveness, once again, sort of an ironic name, since they don't believe at all in competition, he says of this bill, misses the mark. Simply that. Tony Fratto, partner at Hamilton Place Strategies, which basically does communications work with the larger banks, Citibank, Bank of America, said, I fully expect Senator Sanders' third attempt to break up the banks to have the same impact as the previous two. 0. You know, if we actually had a Congress that wasn't owned by the banks, remember the number 2 Democrat in the House, Dick Durbin, said frankly the banks run the place. Exactly they do. If we didn't have a Congress that was so beholden to these big banking institutions, and if that revolving door was shut, we'd be able to break up the big banks. He's right in the fact that it has no chance of passing at this current point. But that's because we have the problem of money in politics. When the banks have bought out a lot of our politicians, you can't get a lot of anti-bank legislation through. However, they're worried about Sanders' ability to activate progressive outside groups. Now, I love how the article says, even if, as conventional wisdom says, he poses no threat to the former Secretary of State's eventual nomination. They have already crowned and coronated Hillary on the Hill. Once again, this is the mainstream press. This is the Hill saying, Hillary's got it in the bag, but these bankers are afraid that Bernie Sanders, this crazy far leftist, who isn't actually all a crazy far leftist, he actually represents most of America, is going to pull Hillary back to the left, which is actually, if anything, would pull her back to the center. Because right now, Hillary Clinton, whether you like it or not, is center right. Just like Barack Obama is. One more banking lobbyist also said, look, when it comes down to it, Bernie Sanders he's just doing this not just because he's trying to demonize the industry, but this populist stuff is popular with his base. Yeah, it is popular because you guys have fucked us over. The base, most of America is not just the so-called fringe. Most of America is angry at the banks for doing what they did. This is classic Wall Street bubble. Not understanding what regular people are thinking, what regular people feel about the power of the banking establishment on Wall Street and K Street, and how it's got its tendrils stuck right into the government, and how it controls the government. They're scared, man. It may not sound like it, but I think, personally, they're more scared than they let on. And they want to stop Bernie right in his tracks. And they want to stop Elizabeth Warren, too. Because those two have been the biggest, and Sherrod Brown. Those three have been the biggest progressive fighters against big banks. I told you before, we need to do what Iceland did. Nationalize them, break them up, and once they're nicely, evenly distributed and competitive again, let them go. Reincorporate them, privatize them again, then they can, and of course, regulate them. That's an important component so they can remain competitive. And if we do that, we could probably have the same kind of success that Iceland had. All it takes is the political will to do it, as well as getting money out of politics.